So yesterday we learned that Henry Cavill was leaving The Witcher after Season 3 and being replaced by Chris Hemsworth's younger brother, Liam Hemsworth. I think that almost any replacement of Henry on this show would have been met with disappointment, despair, unhappiness, bafflement, and so forth. I think just about anybody if you have a show with an ensemble cast, a dozen different main characters and one of them has to be recast, okay, it's probably doable. But even some of the smaller recastings we've seen in shows like Game of Thrones have been a little odd and a little hard to swallow. So recasting the very main character, literally the character who the show's named after, the Witcher himself, Geralt of Rivia, I think is going to be just too bitter a pill. I don't think that the show is going to survive. I do think that they could have done something creative, like a big time jump and Mads Mikkelsen taking over the role, and you just have to deal with the accent shift. I think people would have accepted that simply because everybody loves Mads, and he does kind of look like the Witcher. And in 100 years in the future, when he's older, I don't know, I can't remember how long Witchers actually live, but a really long time. But an older Geralt in a new landscape, a new political landscape, could have been an interesting twist. I don't know. The question, though, and we touched on this a little bit yesterday. The question is, why is Henry Cavill leaving the show? There seems to be two main theories. One, Superman. He's leaving the show because Superman is good money, very time-consuming. He's got to focus his efforts where it matters. Two, creative differences with Netflix and the showrunner and writers and producers of The Witcher. My theory is that it is a little bit of both. I said this on Twitter yesterday. I said basically, if Netflix had hired a showrunner, producers, writers, a team to work on that show that were as big of a fan of the source material and the video games, the books and the games, because that's really what the show is based off of, both. If they had hired a team that was as passionate about this project as Henry himself, that cared as much about being true to the source material, that cared as much about these characters, that cared more about making a great screen adaptation of the stories. And that doesn't mean they couldn't make up their own stories. The games make up their own stories to great effect, but they do it in the spirit of the books. If they had hired this team, I don't think Superman is strong enough to tear Henry Cavill away from The Witcher. That's how big of a fan he was of this story, of the games, of the books, of the short stories, of this universe. I mean, he was a passionate participant in this show. I don't think he would have left. I don't think you could have torn him away from it, even with the promise of returning to Superman. And he's got plenty of money. I know it's always nice to have more. I think maybe he would have, I think that if he was still passionate about The Witcher, I think he would have made it work. Actors are in multiple projects at once. This is not unheard of. I know Superman will probably be time consuming, but I'm sure that they could have worked something out if he had still felt the same degree of passion that he did in the beginning. And I think that passion has been sucked from him because, this is conjecture, absolutely, but just judging by what we've heard, with the producer saying that writers actively disliked the source material, judging by what we've heard, just piecing together bits and pieces of things that Cavill said that we know of based on what we've seen, the changes to the very obvious and glaring changes to the original source material. I think that there were creative differences, and I think that ultimately it's extremely arrogant of Netflix to let him go instead of letting everybody else go. I'm sorry, but without Henry, there is no Witcher. The show's done. I'm sorry, it's nothing against Liam Hemsworth. I'm sure he'll do a fine job, but he's in an unenviable position. There's just no way he can fill those shoes. Who could? Really, realistically. The show The show needs Henry Cavill more than he needs the show, right? I mean, that seems pretty obvious at this point. To go on and be successful, needs to be part of the show. The story of Geralt. It's at this point, he is Geralt, and the show cannot go on without him. He can go on without the show. Obviously, he'll be fine. So I think that if they had actually done what I wish more, this is, again, look at House of the Dragon. Obviously, George R. R. Martin was deeply involved in that, but the team that was hired, Ryan Condal, the main showrunner, Miguel Sapochnik, I can't say his name. I've never been able to. I'm terrible with names, I think. All the writers, all the actors, everybody involved with that has taken it very seriously, and they've created an adaptation that, while there are changes, is very true to the original source material, and the changes that are made actually enhance the source material. They've hired great actors. The writing is absolutely phenomenal. The actors are just completely. I mean, even if I know a lot of them haven't even read the source material, but they're certainly committed, and the writers have done a wonderful job at making the source material almost feel Shakespearean. House of the Dragon is amazing. It's an amazing adaptation. It is a how-to of making adaptations of beloved works of fiction, bringing them to life on the screen. The Witcher, I liked the first season. The second season left me cold. The first season felt like they were finding their feet, and I thought the second season would reflect that, but instead, I just think it was kind of terrible. I mean, there were some good things about it. The budget was clearly higher, and it looked nice, but the story was all over the place, and for no reason. It's another one of these, like, let's take this interesting, different work of fiction written by an author who does not really bandy about in Hollywood tropes that much, and let's just fill it with Hollywood tropes. Let's create weird conflict for no reason, instead of using the conflict that's already baked into the story. So yeah. Anyways, I think that if had they done their due diligence and hired people who were passionate about this project, hired true fans of this project, with talent and with a commitment to making an honest adaptation, I think that this would have been a very, very different picture, and I don't think that he'd be leaving even with Superman around. So maybe he wouldn't be leaving if he didn't have the Superman gig lined up. That might also be true, but I think my guess is it was the 1-2 punch of being unhappy with where the show is going because he's a passionate fan and he feels like it's getting screwed over, and he's got Superman. So anyways, that's my thoughts on that, now that I've had a day to sort of let it all settle in. So thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave some comments. Let me know what you think. It's going to be really interesting to watch Season 3 of The Witcher with this in the back of our brains, So anyways, peace.